Our next symphonic concert will showcase our fabulous Nashville Symphony Chorus in a performance of Sergei Rachmaninoff, The Bells, which is based on writings by Edgar Allan Poe. And these are all depicted about how bells play a role in people's lives. Everything from wedding bells to church bells to funeral bells. And the text at times can be very, very dark, very much what we expect from Edgar Allan Poe. What's interesting is that Rachmaninoff wrote this music originally in Russian, utilizing a translation of the original English version of these poems. But actually at this performance, I decided to go back to the English version of this on translations that I guess, or adaptations that the great choral composer Robert Shaw made to make this piece performed in the original language that Edgar Allan Poe wrote them in. The piece has 4 different movements, and it has a soprano soloist, a tenor soloist, and a baritone, which sing one particular movement each. They have very limited roles, but yet they help us tell the stories of how these bells have a role in everyday life. This piece is one that I have done several times over my career, and it's interesting because actually Rachmaninoff called it a symphony for choir and orchestra. And it has the 4 movements that you would expect in a symphony, but here the choir plays a very significant role because along with telling us the story and singing the text of these beautiful words by Edgar Allan Poe, they become an orchestral instrument as well. And they play many different roles of sometimes editorializing what the soloists are saying, or at times just adding to the emotional aspect of what this music is trying to convey. But very much like Rachmaninoff, it's incredibly colorful, and the orchestration is just absolutely stunning. It is colorful, it is virtuosic, and it is one that I think will give our audiences a different sense of this great composer that most of us relate to his great piano concertos, but we tend to forget that he was also a very successful symphonic composer, and this piece is a perfect example of that journey that he took outside of his piano playing. At these performances, we will also be recording, which has now become a regular part of the Nashville Symphony's concerts. Here we're going to showcase the great American organist Paul Jacobs, who will be playing the fabulous early 20th century concerto by the American composer Horatio Parker. And this is part of a long-term project that we're doing with Mr. Jacobs, where we're going to showcase great American organ pieces for orchestra and an organ. And here we are showcasing the amazing Martin Foundation organ from the Schermerhorn Symphony Center. We're very fortunate in Nashville to have not only our fabulous orchestra and our fabulous concert hall, but we have one of the best organs in any symphonic hall around the world, and we try to showcase it as much as we can, and these programs will give you also a snapshot of what is capable in our fabulous concert hall when we literally release and open all of the stops, pull all of the stops of this beautiful instrument, and give you a great sense of the sonorities that are possible in our concert hall. Mr. Jacobs has been a champion of this concerto for many years, and I have to admit that I was not familiar with it, but when we discussed this recording project, he felt that it was the first piece that he wanted to present. It's a piece that I think also represents American voices before the 20th century. Sometimes we get to think of Gershwin and Copland and Bernstein, but these are composers from the 1930s and on. Parker comes from a time before that, at a time when really the idea of American classical music was something that was not yet established. But yet, composers like Horatio Parker were leading the way and trying to not only get influenced by the great traditions of Europe, but at the same time they were trying to utilize the wealth of American music that was developing around the time, the great combination of different genres of people that were moving to America, immigrants bringing their own art and music. And I think Horatio Parker in this piece in many ways combines those great European traditions with the actual creation of the idea of American music in the early part of the 20th century. Horatio Parker also played a great role in shaping the next generation of composers as a composition teacher. And one of those famous tunes that were under his tutelage, the great Charles Ives. And it gives you an idea of how a very traditional thinking composer is able to, I guess, influence one of the most fast forward thinking composers in history.